Yeah, which is funny considering the rambling I just did. Let's contrast that with stewarding the time you've been given today, Matt. Stewardship is something that, you know, it's very kingdom, isn't it? It's something that we're super familiar with. Um, I think a lot of times we think about money, right? We're like, oh, stewardship, right? Because we're going to steward our money because so often that's how stewardship is presented. But honestly, there's a great deal more to it than that, that's really what we're getting into. It's my goal today. You can check in at the end of the message and say, yes, he did that, or no, he didn't. Hopefully, yes, he did. It's my goal to get us all to think about our life through the eyes of stewardship, our whole lives, not just money, not just one or two little things, but like the fact is that the Lord is looking for us to steward everything, right? Not just one or two things. It's not limited to money. If we fail to steward our lives, we will miss the more that the Lord wants to give us. The Lord is not stingy. He doesn't say, you get this much and no opportunity to get more. That's not how he operates. Thankfully, he's also full of mercy and understanding and compassion. And he knows that when we have an opportunity or we are given something to steward and, we make a mistake with it, that's not the only opportunity he will give us, specifically if our hearts are in a position to learn. He's not just interested in how you manage your money, he's interested in how you manage your life. Are you someone he can trust with more? So we're very familiar with, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to read this whole account because most of us are probably familiar with the parable of the three talents, the three servants. Talents is a measure of money back in the day. I think it's some other translations call it a different type of money. But I think in the book of Matthew it says talents, and I think that's really interesting because I think that can apply to a lot of things when you look at what the word talent means in English. This is Matthew chapter 25, starting in verse 14, if you want to turn there or navigate there on your phone. Or pull it up from memory if you have a photographic memory. Starting in verse 14, Matthew 25, verse 14. Again, it will be like a man going on a journey who called his servants and entrusted his wealth to them. To one he gave 5 bags of gold, to another 2 bags of gold, and to another 1 bag, each according to his ability. Then he went on his journey. The man who had received 5 bags of gold went at once and put his money to work and gained 5 more. So also the one with 2 bags of gold gained 2 more. But the one who received 1 bag went off, dug a hole in the ground, and hid his master's money. After a long time, the master of these servants returned and settled accounts with them. The man who had received 5 bags of gold brought the other 5. Master, he said, you entrusted me with 5 bags of gold. See, I have gained 5 more. His master replied, well done, good and faithful servant. You have been faithful with a few things. I will put you in charge of many things. Come and share your master's happiness. The man with 2 bags of gold also came. Master, he said, you entrusted me with 2 bags of gold. See, I have gained 2 more. His master replied, well done, good and faithful servant. You have been faithful with a few things. I will put you in charge of many things. Come and share your master's happiness. Seeing a pattern so far, hopefully? Then the man who had received 1 bag of gold came. Master, he said, I knew that you are a hard man, harvesting where you have not sown and gathering where you have not scattered seed. So I was afraid and went out and hid your gold in the ground. See, here is what belongs to you. His master replied, you wicked, lazy servant. So you knew that I harvest where I have not sown and gather where I have not scattered seed? Well, you should have put my money on deposit with the bankers so that when I returned, I would have received it back with interest. So take the bag of gold from him and give it to the one who had 10 bags. For whoever has will be given more, and they will have an abundance. Whoever does not have, even what they have will be taken away. There was something of interest for that verse. First, I realized I copied this over in the wrong translation, which is fine. But normally I would have read it where it said talents instead of bags of gold. But you get the idea. That last verse is really interesting. For whoever has will be given more, and they will have an abundance. Okay, we're good with that. Whoever does not have, even what they have will be taken from them. Now that stings a little bit, I think, for us to read. And I think it's healthy when we read something in the Bible that makes us uncomfortable. Because what it does is it makes us have to think. It makes us say, why? Why this? And I think it's always important to read something in context. We're reading this in context of stewardship. So when Jesus says this, it is in regard to stewardship. Those who do not have are the ones who have not managed what they were given. That's the context. Yeah, and it stings a little bit. But that's the context. It's always good to look at context, because otherwise we're thinking, oh, shoot, if I don't have anything, is God going to take everything away from me? That's not what the verse is saying. So stewardship, this is my definition of stewardship if you're taking notes. This is the way that I currently look at it, my best understanding. Stewardship is giving back to God what he gave to you with a return or with an increased measure. I'll say it one more time. Stewardship is giving back to God what he gave you with a return or in an increased measure. When we do this, God, in turn, is able to trust us with more. It's very, very clearly laid out for us in this passage. Well done, good and faithful servant. You have been faithful with a little. You will be given more. Stewardship leads to increase. Now, it's important to know that kingdom increase does not always mean more stuff. It does not always mean more of the same. Kingdom increase looks like whatever it is that God is now seeing in your life as being capable of being able to handle. I felt a little awkward coming out, but hopefully that makes sense. Kingdom increase is not necessarily more of the same. It's whatever God has said, you are now capable of handling this that you weren't able to before this opportunity came to you. But now that you have come to this opportunity, or I've given you this extra, this bonus, whatever it is, you've now shown me that you can handle more. So now what I've had for you in this area, I can now give you because I know how you're going to handle it. I know that you're capable of handling it. Stewardship is actually the original commandment from God to mankind. This has been something from the very beginning that he gave us. Adam and Eve, be fruitful, multiply, and take control, dominion, subdue the earth. That was God taking something that was his, handing it over to mankind and saying, take care of this. Stewardship is what we've been doing from the beginning. That I think in a lot of ways, it's God's primary way of partnering with us is through stewarding something that he's giving us, something that's his. We need to know Romans 11:36 tells us that everything that we've been given has come from God. From him and through him and for him are all things. Romans 11:36. So that means everything that we have has its origin in the Lord. So what about this thing? I built this from the ground up. Look at me. I did this. I had nothing, and I came from here to there. You know what? That's amazing. Congratulations. You stewarded what? Something God gave you, because where did your talent come from? Where did your ability come from? Where did your tenacity come from? God's the one who designed your personality. He's the one who gave you your gift mix. He's the one who knew all of these things about you. And so if you have used those to come further than where you started, you have stewarded. But however, this is just half of the piece. This is one side of the coin, half the piece of pie. Oh, now we're thinking about pie. Sorry. This is only half of it. Stewardship is not really completely about tangible things, measurable things like that. It's also about your heart. It's about the posture of your heart. Your heart is the primary factor in whether or not you steward successfully. Do you know that? I think when we think about it, it makes sense. Often we don't think about that. We will think about, maybe I'm speaking for myself here. The knee-jerk reaction is to think about, okay, just make sure that I make good decisions with my money. Make sure I make good decisions with, whatever it is that I have in front of me to do right now. Make good decisions. And then we make it about our actions, when in reality, the Lord's looking at the heart. As Jesus said, man looks at the outward appearance, but the Lord looks at the heart. Because can you do the right things on the outside? Yeah. While having the wrong inside? Yes. Yes, you can. There's a really scary verse in Matthew 7 when Jesus is telling a parable about, basically telling a truth that he says, people will come to me, in the end, and they'll say, Lord, didn't we do all these things in your name? And he says, well, depart from me, I never knew you. But they did all the things. Didn't we cast out demons? Didn't we heal the sick? Didn't we do all of these things? And Jesus says, I never knew you. You did all of the things, but you never let your heart be connected with mine. You never let your heart be accessible to me. Therefore, I never knew you. And it's obviously not my intention to be scary this morning, but I think it's a beautiful picture, a really clear picture of how important our heart posture is, because you can go through your life doing all the right things and have your heart be in all the wrong spots, but you've gotten really good at looking polished on the outside. And that is this whole thing of having the appearance of godliness. But that's it. Having a form of godliness. You've done the right things, but have you let the right things change you? Big question. So stewardship is the proving ground to see if you can handle the increase, both in the natural and in your heart. God's primary concern is your heart and is not your comfort, which is a bummer, right? Who loves being comfortable, right? If you could just sit, be comfortable, eat your favorite food, have your favorite drink, and money just rolled in, the lawn mowed itself. Oh, that's a beautiful picture of the lawn. I got 2 toddlers right now. Yeah, nothing gets done. If the lawn could mow itself, all of these things just took care of itself, and you just got to be comfortable. That's a wonderful picture. That doesn't happen. It doesn't happen. I mean, Dustin was up here leading worship. If you look at him, Dustin is a pretty built guy. We've noticed it, right? Dustin's got good muscles, okay? He also has a black eye right now, which is why he's not teaching. He asked me to preach because he's like, people might wonder what happened, why I have a black eye. No, he does jujitsu, and so he's obviously always working. Elbows get thrown. I'm sure it's not on purpose. I'm sure it's not. But Dustin we're just going to use him as a great example because he can take it. He does not have the build that he has by sitting on the couch eating whatever he wants. He's worked hard. He's trained his body. I don't know if you've ever watched Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. It's like sweaty people squeezing each other until somebody says, "You've squeezed me too much. I'm done." I'm already done with Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. I know, I've watched it before. It makes me uncomfortable just watching it. He has gone through a whole level of training I'm not willing to go through to get to the build that he has. You realize that to do that, he's had to actually endure a lot, obviously, of stuff. Sweat, other people's sweat, people like struggling against him. It's called resistance. You realize that comfort does not yield anything. I mean, rest is good, but if you're always resting, then that's where things start to kind of fall apart. Resistance is the thing that actually builds you. All of the struggle, the training, everything Dustin's gone through has lent him to being the strong fellow that he is, the sturdy guy that we know. In the same way, the Lord doesn't want us to sit and be comfortable. Adam and Eve, even in perfect unison, harmony with the Lord, this is before sin had entered the picture. Everything was great. What did he do? He gave them a job. So even in paradise, even in perfect communion, they were still working. So let's go ahead and connect the dots. Sometimes the church paints the worst pictures of what like heaven and being with Jesus is going to be like, and we're like, oh, we're just going to float and everything's gold and there's no like problems anymore. I mean, sure, there's no problems anymore. Not everything is gold, by the way. They paint this picture of like clouds and gold and doing nothing, and except, oh, we're just going to worship forever. Well, I think the Lord has a little more in mind than a church service that never ends. But that's kind of what it sounds like sometimes. But God's whole thing with us is stewardship. It's partnership. And so if you think that when you get there, job's done. No, this is chapter 1. This is the preface, right? We're not even in chapter 1. We're not even to the intro. We're just like, this is all like the Lord's plan for us is so much bigger than the boring picture that so many people have painted for us in church, okay? That's a whole side note, but it used to really, really bother me when I was younger because I felt like, that sounds awful. That sounds awful. I don't know if I want to go there if that's what we're going to do. And so just forgive me. I'm going to step off my soapbox for a second. But the truth is, if you aren't uncomfortable, you may not be stewarding correctly. But also on the other side of the coin, just because you're uncomfortable doesn't mean you are stewarding. Right? Sometimes you're just uncomfortable because you're stubborn. Stubborn's not a bad thing. Stubborn can be a really good thing. And in fact, if you're a parent and you have a stubborn kid, congratulations. That kid has what it takes to make really good decisions, to hold really tightly to their convictions. Your job is not to break them of their strong will. It's to teach them how to make good decisions and train their strong will to hold on to the things that are important. You want to know how? Dustin and Savannah are right here. They can teach you. They're going to be who I'm talking to. I'll be honest. God's interest is in growth, and growth requires overcoming resistance. Sometimes that resistance looks like our circumstances. Sometimes the resistance is internal. It's that voice that says, no. Don't do that, because if you do that, it may not work out. You're going to have to stand up from the couch, and this is a good couch. Couch comfort, all of this is really good. Don't get up, right? The resistance wants to keep us comfortable. But it's the thing that unless we come up against, growth can't happen. You know that, have you ever heard the phrase that the natural reflects the spiritual? You guys heard that before? That things that you see in the natural, a principle in the natural, reflects a spiritual truth. Newton's law of motion, his first law of motion, says that objects in motion will stay in motion until acted upon by an outside force. Objects at rest will stay at rest as well. And so just know that voice of resistance in your life, I apply it to anything. Apply it to, I really want to read the Bible more. I really want to be more creative. I really want to invest into X, Y, and Z that's in my life and the opportunities in front of me. The more you do it, the easier it becomes, because an object in motion will stay in motion. God does not want to give you more until he knows that you're capable of handling it without it ruining your life, without it crippling you. That's why he's so merciful. And it's up to you after the more is given to you, whether or not it ruins you. But at least he's gotten you to a point where he knows you can make good decisions. He's not going to give it to you before you're ready. Because when you get that opportunity, you've stewarded correctly, the Lord blesses you with more. Guess what you have to do with that more? You have to steward it again. And sometimes I think we have this one thing in mind. If I can only reach this goal, if I can only do this one thing, and we really fixate on that one thing because for whatever reason, that feels like the thing that's going to fix our lives. For me, when I was a kid, it was doing music at a professional level, recording, touring, all that stuff. Nothing could take me away from that. That's what I wanted to do. And for those of you who don't know my story, I got there. And in a lot of ways, I didn't really steward what I was given. And I'm not going to go down that whole road. But when you get to that thing, you have to steward it. Otherwise, you realize like this is not the end all be all. You actually feel exactly the same. Maybe there's like the new exciting, like, ooh, I finally got there, and then you realize I'm not fulfilled. I am not a whole person. There must be more. Yes, and you're right, there is. There is more. But it starts with stewarding the thing that you had just walked into. So I want to touch on a couple of areas real quick. Areas that need stewarding in our lives. And I'm doing this as kind of like a practical thing to take what we just talked about and apply it in some practical levels. Obviously, the first one we touched on a little bit, that's money. The area that needs stewarding, an area that needs stewarding in our lives is our finances. The point of stewarding finances is not to become wealthy. It's to steward what we've been given to ensure that what we have, goes to advance the kingdom. Advance God's kingdom and not our own. Kingdom stewardship of your finances ensures that your trust is in God and not in your bank account. It's the whole, do you own your stuff or does your stuff own you? And that's the whole point of really when we talk about stewarding our finances, when we talk about tithing, we talk about giving to the Lord, giving to those in need. It's all comes down to this, again, the heart posture of, if I give this away, am I concerned that I won't have enough? If so, if that's what comes to mind, that means that's still an area of your heart that needs to be tuned. And it hits all of us. This is not this. None of this that I'm talking about this morning is, I've figured this all out and I have this message to bring to you now that I'm 100%. So just keep that in mind. So I'm not going to spend a lot of time here on money because we've talked about that. We talk about that every Sunday. Stewarding our money, managing what the Lord has given us financially, and giving away a small portion of it or whatever the Lord has put on our heart to give away, so that our hearts stay tender before the Lord, so that our hearts stay reliant on Him as our source, and not on our own strength, not on our bank account, not on our jobs. Speaking of, another thing that we need to steward is our jobs, with the work that the Lord has given us. And this is going to tie into a few other areas, so again, I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this. But I think there are times in our lives where we have jobs where stewardship, like doing the job well is really easy. And thank you, Jesus, for those times. There's other times in our lives where we have a job where the stewardship piece is actually really difficult. For any number of reasons, bosses often are a cause for us to not steward very well, or perhaps the job is not something that we're that interested in doing. This is not my thing. I'd rather be over here doing this. And then we start taking for granted what's in front of us because we're looking at the grass being greener on the other side of the fence. And I love what Chris Valentin says. He says, the grass is not greener in someone else's yard. The grass is greener where you water it. And just a little reminder for us all this morning that you are not working for your boss. Your boss may be in charge of your paycheck, but you're actually working for the Lord. Your boss is just a vehicle that the Lord may be using to test you. Yeah. Sometimes that test is an easy test, and sometimes that test is, I should have studied more. Should have studied more for this test. But the Lord is always interested in knowing where your heart is. I'm not saying stay in a bad situation. I'm not saying stay somewhere where you are working for an abusive boss and, things are all, the ship is burning, but stay there. No. What I am saying, though, is watch your heart. If you find yourself in these scenarios, where's your heart at? What are the things that you are thinking to yourself? Are you a victim? Of course he would do this to me again. Of course she said that to me. Are you a victim? Are you demonizing someone who actually desperately needs the Lord? This person, they're just the worst. What kind of person do you have to be to say this to somebody else? You must be a miserable person. I bet you that you've got no friends. You're probably miserable, and you just bring your misery in and rub it all on everybody else. It's really easy to do when you're frustrated. But actually, if there's a measure of truth in any of that, think of how miserable and sad that person is and how desperate they are for a touch from the Lord. And that's where this whole thing called compassion kicks in. The enemy hates compassion because when we look at anyone through the eyes of compassion, it literally changes us from the inside out. Compassion is not just about other people, but it's about us. Compassion changes us. Compassion is the thing that enables us to release forgiveness to people who have hurt us. You also have to steward your prophetic words, your promises from the Lord. Sometimes we're waiting on the Lord to make things happen while he's waiting for us to get into the right position. Now, something that my wife and I do, especially these days with toddlers, we're just, things are a little bit busy at the house, where we get to the end of the day and, we have a routine where, we're like, I can finally sit down and talk to you. But there are some times where I'm waiting on her because I think she's doing something, but she's actually waiting on me. We're standing right next to each other and just kind of these things are really distracting. So I'm waiting on her while she's waiting on me. And then finally somebody's like, we could be sitting down. Like, I was waiting on you. Oh, well, I was waiting on you. And I think sometimes we can end up taking the words that the Lord gave us and we're like, the Lord will bring this to pass in his good timing. Well, that's true. But there's also a measure of responsibility that you have to position yourself to hold on to the word that you were given and to steward your heart and sometimes steward your actions. If you were given a word, I'm going to bless your business. You are going to have a business that's going to grow into multiple businesses, and you're going to be used to do all of this. You're going to impact the state in all these ways, and it's going to be really awesome and really powerful. And you never start a business. How is the Lord going to bless the business that you are not trying to start? Because you're like, well, it's just going to happen. How? What business? What business is it? That doesn't mean you have to force a word to happen, but it does mean, Lord, if this is a word from you, I'm going to start taking some baby steps towards starting a business and see what happens. We have to position ourselves for the Lord to move in our lives. Cassie mentioned our story, my wife and I. I mean, the very short, abbreviated version. I have shared it up here semi-recently, but my wife, Carla, and I, we were, believing the Lord for a family, and we had gotten pregnant a couple of times. We lost a couple pregnancies, but we had words from people, we had dreams, people that we had just met. We met a guy one night. The next morning, we saw him again. He's like, I dreamed about you guys last night. When you're, sometimes when you're like getting the same message, the same word from so many people, like, oh, you're going to talk to us about having kids, aren't you? And sure enough, he had a dream about us and our family. And just one after another, we got these words, and we said, okay, we believe these words. And this was months before Carla and I ended up getting pregnant, I felt we had a room in our house that was across the hallway from our bedroom. I'd been using it as like an office / music studio, but we had the understanding like this was actually going to be the nursery. This was going to be the girls' room, or the baby's room when the baby comes along. But we didn't know. We didn't know when that was, but something stirred in my heart, and I said, if I really believe that the Lord is going to do this, then I'm going to position myself, and I'm going to make that room ready. So I stripped off 2 layers of wallpaper and, got everything like smoothed over, painted out, got everything ready months before anything happened. And it ended up within a handful of months that we found out that we were pregnant, and we found out we were pregnant with twins. And so you can either take a word and say, I hope, or you can take a word and say, I'm going to act on this. And when you do, it activates your faith. And you've actually stewarded that word, and the Lord says, you have stewarded what I've promised you. You've positioned your heart in the right way. Now I can bless you with more. I'll say this, hold tight to your promises, hold tight to your prophetic words, but hold on to the details loosely. I've been walking with the Lord long enough now to know, like, the words come to pass, but they don't always come to pass in the way that you've built up in your mind. And if you build it up too much in your mind, you can actually sometimes maybe miss the Lord when he presents the opportunity, because you're like, yeah, that would work, but it really is going to look like this. Another area is in relationships and community. And this is an interesting thing to think about in the terms of to create a return. But I know, community and relationships. So you can put this relationships as a broad category, right? It could be like friendship. It could be your marriage. It could be, on a community level at work or at church. The Lord blesses you with people in your life. Thank God. But you realize that they're not just there to be a blessing to you. You're actually there to be a blessing to them as well. And a lot of times when we think about community, we think about like, I need more of it in my life. And you're right, you do. But you know what else? The people need you as well. And if the Lord has put you in a community like this, you actually have an opportunity to steward. You have an opportunity to, this can be, tricky for the introverts out there, to actually put yourself out there and get connected with folks and start to get to know the people around you. And I think the enemy, let's just say this, nothing good comes out of isolation, right? Nothing good comes out of isolation, especially these days when the world is filled with things to make you perfectly content in isolation. The internet is not your friend. Those people aren't, sure, you've got friends, actual friends on there, on the internet. It's kind of a joke. I feel like I've heard kicking around. It's like, a friend is somebody who lives 3 states away and you text, at least that's sometimes I feel like that's how it is for men. But the world, like our cell phones and social media and all these things make it really easy to not have community immediately around you, but to give you a sort of fake version of community. Like, well, I'm talking to people. Like, yes, that's true, but you're not face to face with somebody. This is why it's in the Bible to not give up the habit of meeting together. Because it's so important. There's something that happens when you see somebody face to face and you talk face to face. Which is why people are so mean on the internet, because there's no accountability like the face to face accountability is not there. And so people say the meanest, most horrible things on the internet. And then it makes you want to go, oh, well, I'm going to just wait till I'm done. Get ready for what I have to say to you, buddy. And it's this vicious thing. Anyway, all that to say is we have opportunities to steward the connections that are in front of us. And how well you steward your relationships will determine how deep they go. And the more the return that you get blessed with is, there's probably a few layers of this, but there is something so healing about being in healthy community with someone. Vulnerability breaks shame in your life. Isolation creates shame. It creates an environment where shame can run rampant in your life. But when you sit down with somebody in community and you say, I am really dealing with this, something snaps. It breaks. That shame can't hang on to you anymore, because all of a sudden the light of community, the light of fellowship is shining in, and that thing can no longer grow. Dark, dusty, damp basements grow all sorts of things. But when you open up the windows, you get sunshine and fresh air blowing through there, it changes. And the last thing I want to touch on here, and maybe this is like the hardest one for some of us. And it's actually stewarding your opportunities, stewarding the promotions that the Lord has given you. If we go back to the parable, we've got the guy who was given 5, the guy who was given 2, and the guy who was given 1. Each according to their ability, which is so interesting. What do we see? You are given something that is not the same as someone else. Everyone is given a different measure, and it's all dependent on their ability. What goes into their ability? Their history with the Lord, their natural gift mix, like what the Lord has put on their lives to do, their calling, callings, anointings, all those things. That is all wrapped up in this word, ability. And so one guy was given 5, one guy given 2, one guy given 3. I think my favorite If I had to choose, who's your favorite in these three? Well, definitely not the last guy. I think the most impressive servant in this scenario was the second guy. He was given 2. He was given less than the guy who had more. But he still decided to steward. Now, this is, obviously this was a parable. This wasn't like an actual guy, unless it was, Jesus could have been thinking specifically about something else when he made this parable. So I'm like, these 3 guys I knew. But it's amazing to see someone given less do just as much as the one given more. Same, we say this is something I've said before. There's different levels of, you're given a different amount in the kingdom. That's not all fair, as we would like to say, but the pay in the kingdom is all the same. At the end of the day, it all comes down to, are you going to hear, well done, good and faithful servant, you've been faithful with a little, I'll give you more? Or are you going to hear, well, let's see what happens next time. Thank God there's a next time. And the interesting thing, the sad thing is the guy at the end, he had 1. And what did he do? He was afraid of the master. He made accusations about him. And then he just buried it. He buried what he had been given. He had no idea really who the master was. He just makes accusations. He doesn't trust that the master has his best in mind. He says, maybe in that scenario, he says, I was only given 1. Look, they have so much more. This is not good. You know that comparison will shipwreck your life. Comparison is the thing that will steal from you so much. It's jealousy is what it is. If you go back to the story of Cain and Abel, Abel brought an offering. I know we're not going to go into the whole story. Abel brought an offering that pleased the Lord. Cain did not. Cain was so jealous that his jealousy led to killing his brother. Then God comes to him and he's like, hey, where's your brother? And his blood is crying out to me from the ground. And Cain's like, yeah, I don't know. He's around here somewhere. Am I my brother's keeper? Yes, actually. That was part of it. Yeah, you are. But he killed his brother out of jealousy. And what happens? God says to him, Cain was a farmer, by the way. He says, the ground will no longer yield its strength to you. What was his calling? To work the ground. So his calling was affected by his jealousy. Jealousy will lead you to hold somebody else's ability as better than your own, which will then in turn diminish the value of what you've been given, which will then affect what you've been given to do. Some are given more than others, and that's both a test for the fortunate and the unfortunate, as you might say. Being given the most, there's a lot of pressure. There's a lot of stewardship. It's from Spider-Man, but with great power comes great responsibility. It's an amazing truth from a comic book movie. But it's also a test for those who are given less, because the Lord's not holding you to the standard of having more. He's saying, I gave you this. Will you be faithful with the little thing that I gave you? Will you be faithful with, yes, you want this, but you're not ready for that, so I'm going to give you this instead. If I give you less than what you want, are you going to steward it, or are you going to get hung up there? Because if you get hung up there, hello, coming from someone who has been hung up there like most of my life, definitely most of my life up, my teenage years and my 20s, just super jealous of everyone who had what I wanted. It affects what you've been given to do, because here's the truth. Nothing that you have will grow if it's not valued. If you don't value it, you won't put time into it. If you don't put time into it, it won't grow. So how can you grow something the Lord gave you if you don't value it? Every small little opportunity in your life is an opportunity from the Lord, because he wants to know, will you handle this tiny, tiny, seemingly insignificant speck? Will you steward that thing? Because behind that is another measure. Behind that is more. Behind that is more. That's our promise. We go from glory to glory to glory. When you follow the Lord, you don't go from glory to less glory. You go from glory to glory. Now, we get hung up, and sometimes, what I've said earlier, kingdom increase does not always mean more of the same thing. So sometimes we get hung up because we're like, well, I'm here now. I was here. I was doing this thing. Everyone was like, they saw me. Wow, how great. It was wonderful. And now I'm at this thing that feels perhaps lesser. But if you hadn't done this, the Lord wouldn't have brought you this opportunity. And if you steward this, there's a measure of blessing coming to you that may not be visible yet. But we know we're not working specifically for visible things. So how do you handle being given less than somebody else? How do you handle when you see somebody getting the opportunity that you wanted? I remember years ago being down, going to the Lakeland Revival. Anybody go down for that? Down in Lakeland, Florida? You watched it. There you go. I remember getting down there. This is when I was younger. And I don't even know how many years ago that was, 15, 20, I don't know, somewhere through there. Time flies. I remember getting down there and standing in worship, being a young punk worship leader, seeing this guy leading worship and thinking, how did he get this gig? Like, how? Like, Jesus, have you heard me? Who's this guy? And I was thinking, like, I would be doing such a better job than him. And clear as day, the Lord said, yes, but he's up there and you're down here. And I went, oh. And I felt the correction of the Lord so clearly but gently telling me, Matt, that's not the right heart. That's not the right heart. You're leading worship in the middle of nowhere, New Hampshire, for a church that gets smaller every Sunday. And how are you stewarding that? And, I didn't forget that, clearly, because I just told the story. So I didn't forget that. But the third servant had what was entrusted to him taken away and given to someone else. When the Lord gives us an opportunity, it's to bless people around us. Your favor is not for you. If the Lord gives you an opportunity to have the thing, to get the promotion, to, I don't know, when it was me, it was to be on stage when I was a kid. I just wanted to be up on the stage. I wanted to do X, Y, and Z. I wanted that. Right? But it was for me. I needed it. I deserved it. I put in my time. When I missed the whole point, the Lord gives you an opportunity because He has something on your life that will take care of other people. But if we look at this parable, the servant didn't He had his opportunity. He didn't steward it. It was taken away, and that opportunity was then given to someone else who had proven themselves. If we don't realize that what the Lord is giving us is for other people, our opportunities will be given to somebody else. Ooh, that's a stiff challenge. Thank God for grace, because the Lord is willing to give us second chances, third chances. Or Michael Scott says, everyone deserves a second chance. Like the Lord looks at us that way. But it's my hope that as we've gone through this, and I'm showing you all of these different examples, that you're seeing this pattern, that really, if we're talking about stewardship, we're talking about stewarding our hearts before we do anything else. Every test that the Lord brings in front of you, it's about your heart first. It's not about, can you take this money and turn it into more money? Can you take this promotion and turn it into another promotion? It's, can you take this promotion, let it change you from the inside out, be a blessing to those around you, so that then I can move you into an even bigger role with more influence where you can bless those people even more than you were a blessing to the people behind in the last season. And then once you steward that, well, guess what? I'm going to change you into another role that's going to bless people even deeper. Again, it's not always more. Sometimes it goes from really visible to really invisible, and that can be really uncomfortable for us. But in reality, more is always more in the kingdom, regardless of how it looks to us in the natural. We just have to value it the way that the Lord does. God is not looking for perfection. He's looking for willing and open hearts. You can do all the right things, but is your heart accessible to the Lord? And I'll say this as I'm wrapping up. Hanging on to old disappointments will eat you. It will eat you up. When I was a kid, I was a teenager in this particular phase of my life. I was part of this like worship night, basically. Every Thursday night we had this worship community, and I really, really wanted to be up on the worship team with my peers who were up there. But that opportunity didn't present itself. There was some hurt that was involved, and that hurt became the thing that drove me forward. And you can be driven, you can do all the right things with the wrong heart, right? But that hurt became kind of narcissistic fuel, for my engine. And I said, I will show you. The people who hurt me, who passed me over, who gave the opportunities to people besides me, I will show you, and one day you will see I should have never treated Matt that way. And I bet you they don't even remember it. I bet you they don't remember it. And as far as I was able to go, the Lord blessed me with opportunities that my heart really, I had stewarded, yes, but I wish my heart had been in a better spot. Who knows? I'm still thankful. The Lord still used me. And again, he's not looking for perfect. He's looking for willing. And boy, was I willing. But I also wonder, if someone had gotten a hold of me and said, what is this thing? What is this thing in your heart? If I had been really honest and had sat down with the Lord and inspected that thing and said, Lord, I am being driven by something that doesn't feel really good, doesn't feel really clean, I do wonder, how things might have rolled out differently in that season of my life. And ultimately, the Lord, used my circumstances. That season ended painfully for me. And he was able to go back and just kind of deconstruct in a healthy way all of this facade and this pain and this performance that I had built up that had crippled me because I was so in my head all the time that I couldn't actually just take a breath. So it's my hope this morning is to get us to re-examine our lives, the things that we're looking at right now, facing right now, and see how the Lord might be preparing us for something more. And it's also my hope that maybe I've pushed a few buttons and you might be thinking about some things that you're like, I still feel a little salty about that. There might be a little lingering something from some past disappointment, some past opportunity that didn't work out the way that you wanted. And it's my hope that you'll take a look at that thing and say, okay, Jesus, maybe you're talking to me this morning. Maybe you're talking to me. Let's deal with this thing because the Lord's very, very willing. Very willing. Let's stand together. I want to pray for us as we wrap up. I just want to say it again, like the Lord is so willing to give you more opportunities. And if you're thinking, actually, yeah, maybe I wish I had done this differently in my life and I have these regrets, and yeah, I mean, we all do. We all do. There's all things that we can look back on and wish we had done differently. The key is to bring those things to the Lord. Get together with somebody, talk about those things, especially if you feel embarrassed. Embarrassment is it's like the seed version of shame. It's that sort of thing. They're kind of all tied in together. Shame is the thing that will keep you trapped. That's the whole point. Shame keeps you isolated. And so I'll have the ministry teams come forward as they always do. If you want to pray with somebody this morning, if you want to pray through something, you feel like, hey, you know what? I really could use a word from the Lord. I need healing in my body, whatever it is, come on up to the front or grab somebody next to you that you trust and say, hey, we pray together. I want to pray as we close. Jesus, Lord, thank you that you are the God of second and third and fourth and all these wonderful chances that you give us. Lord, thank you that you're so kind. You're so kind to us. You're so good to us. That you entrust us with something. That you've given us something. Lord, we want to start off just by being thankful. Lord, look at the way that you've blessed our lives. Because even if our lives aren't they aren't the most ideal, even bad circumstances, we know those are things that are opportunities for us to steward. We even have to steward our hearts in tough circumstances. Now, James says to count it all joy when you're faced with trials of various kinds, because those are the things that produce perseverance. Those are the things that yield a harvest in your life. So, Lord, we're thankful for you this morning. We're thankful for your grace. And, Lord, I just release grace over people this morning. Lord, I thank you that there is no striving with you. There is no reason to strive. You have not called us to strive. You have called us to be at peace, walk alongside you, to steward what's in front of us, but it's not striving. You are the one who will open the doors. I remember being given really, really wise advice from a friend of mine when I was in a tough season. He said, just do what's in front of you really well. And if you don't know what to do with your circumstances, you don't know what to do right now, you wish that things were different, what's in front of you? Look at your job, look at your circumstances, look at the opportunities that you have, the bank account, no matter how big or small that number is, look at that as an opportunity to steward your heart and say, I will choose to trust that you are doing something even when I can't see it, and I will come out of this season I will come out of these circumstances trusting in you, not looking at what somebody else has, not looking at what I used to have, not wishing that I was somewhere else doing anything else, but I will say, this is where I am, this is what I have. I will choose to trust you with it because you are good. You are good. Yeah, we come against discouragement in Jesus' name. Anywhere where discouragement has taken hold of lives, we break that off in Jesus' name. We say that you are more than a conqueror. So you're not just meant to conquer, you're meant to completely dominate the circumstances in your life. That whatever area it is that you're facing right now, you are not called to just conquer. You are called to more than conquer that thing, and you will. You will in Jesus' name. You are not alone. You are surrounded by people right now. You are not alone. Yeah, we love you, Jesus. We bless you.